Hey there guys, last year I uploaded a video where I discussed every Guild Wars 2 profession and its current elite specialization. Looking at the comments of that video, I can conclude two things. People want some personal advice and want to know what profession is good for a specific game mode. And apparently, my pronunciation of the word class was excellent. So since people were looking for specific advice on what profession or class fits their favorite game mode, I decided to create a follow-up guide for this topic. In this video, I'm going to give a top 3 of the most popular professions for each game mode. When I was creating the list for this video, I tried to combine a mixture of different playstyles, my opinion, and the current meta. The builds I discuss in the video can be found on the websites that I've linked in the description. Navigate to the corresponding category and play the build you like. If you are looking for a more objective overview of all the professions in Guild Wars 2, you should watch my other video, which is linked in the info charts. And if you're interested in a specific segment of the video, you can find the timestamps for each game mode in the description. And if you want to support my content, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, comment, and watch this video all the way to the end. It helps me out a lot. Alright, let's dig into the video. I think most of the people watching this video are wondering what the best profession is for the Endgame PvE content. I'm not going to discuss what the Endgame PvE content is. I dedicated a complete video guide to the Endgame content in Guild Wars 2, so you can check that out if you haven't already. Without a doubt, in Endgame PvE there are 3 professions that have been prominently present for the last couple of years. You will see these professions in basically every endgame setup. Let's have a look at number 3, the Warrior. The main reason why the Warrior is popular is its support ability. First, the Warrior can drop a banner to create an AoE buff for its allies. This buff is automatically applied to a maximum of 10 nearby allies. Therefore, this is commonly used in raiding and fractal groups. The Banner of Discipline and the Banner of Strength are the most commonly used banners in these endgame team compositions. The Banner of Discipline grants each ally 100 points in precision and 100 points in ferocity. These two stats increase the chance to deliver critical damage and increase the critical damage players can deliver. The Banner of Strength grants each ally 100 points in power and 100 points in condition damage. These two stats increase the direct damage and the damage over time that players can do. These effects can be amplified with the doubled standard traits in the discipline trait line of the Warrior. Second, next to those banners, the Warrior also has a trait that can provide another 100 power to nearby allies. The trait is called Empower Allies and it can be found in the Tactics trait line. Last, the Warrior also has a trait that shares his or her might with nearby allies when they gain might themselves. This trait is called Phalanx Strength. Might is a boon that increases the damage done by a player for a few seconds. This effect can stack up to 25 times. For example, your Warrior uses a skill that gives him or her might, then that might will also spread to nearby allies. The best thing about this profession is that this Warrior build is playable for everyone. Whether you have an expansion or not, it doesn't matter. There's a variation of this build for everyone. The Support Warrior, or the Banner Support, as it is commonly referred to, is a very popular role that has been in the game for years. It is definitely worth having in your team and it has a low learning curve, so it is easier to get into for newer players. Moving on to number 2, the Ranger. If you own the Heart of Thorns expansion, you can use the Druid Elite specialization on your Ranger. The Druid Elite specialization gives a Ranger a good amount of healing abilities. Your Ranger will also gain access to the Staff as a weapon. The Staff abilities can all heal or remove conditions in a particular way. The Druid also gains access to the Celestial Avatar. This temporary form gives you access to a strong set of healing abilities. These healing abilities are so strong that they can heal up to 5 people from low health to full health in just a second. Some of these healing abilities, like Lunar Impact, can provide an excellent source of crowd control. This can be used to daze or stun a number of enemies or break a raid boss's break bar. But wait, there's more. First, like the Warrior, the Druid can also buff its allies. In most team compositions, the Druid can use the Frost Spirit skill. This spirit can be summoned to increase the damage of 10 nearby allies. Second, the Druid can also use the Glyph of Empowerment, which can further buff your allies' damage for a few seconds. While in the Celestial Avatar form, the Glyph will change its functionality. Activate it in Celestial Avatar form to increase the healing that allies receive. Third and last, the Druid can use the Grace of the Land trait to grant might to allies when using skills in the Celestial Avatar form. Also, the Spotter trait can be activated to further increase the precision of nearby allies, which increases the chance that your allies can critically hit. The Druid is a solid option if you want a healer in your team composition. Some more experienced groups leave out the Druid and replace it for more damage. However, if you are new to a Fractal or a raid, then I would highly advise you to take a Druid with you. Let's have a look at number 1, the Mesmer. The Mesmer is a must-have profession in basically every endgame team composition, especially the Chronomancer elite specialization plays a key role in your team. This elite specialization comes with the Heart of Thorns expansion. The Chronomancer has the ability to manipulate time. With the right gear and the correct skill rotation, the Chronomancer can provide permanent quickness and alacrity to your allies. But what do these boons do? The quickness boon increases your attack, action and spellcasting speed by 50%. This allows your team to deliver damage much faster and it makes it easier for the Druid to heal your team. Quickness usually comes with the skills Tides of Time, Signet of Inspiration, the Well of Action and Time Warp. The alacrity boon reduces the cooldown of your skills. Having this boon allows you to cast your powerful spells and skills in much faster succession. Alacrity usually comes from the skills Tides of Time, Well of Recall and the Signet of Inspiration. There are also some traits that improve your alacrity, for example Flow of Time or improved alacrity. The Chronomancer is also able to extend the duration of these boons along with other boons by using the Signet of Inspiration. With the correct skill rotation and the use of Continuum Split, this skill can be used in rapid succession. As described before, the Chronomancer plays a key role in every endgame setup. The quickness, alacrity and the extension of other boons like Might and Fury allow your DPS players to deal more damage in a shorter period of time. If you happen to own the Path of Fire expansion, you can also use the Mirage elite specialization. The Mirage is excellent in dealing condition damage. It is most commonly used for specific raid bosses that are easier to defeat with condition damage. So, if you want to deal damage instead of supporting your team, the Mirage could be great for you. I think that covers Endgame PvE. Let's move on to Open World PvE. We can define Open World PvE as participation in world events, guild missions, exploration, and the personal and the living world story. There's no real meta in Open World PvE. It is basically BYOB, which means bring your own build. So I'm going to list my favorite 3 professions here. My personal preference for this game mode is mobility, AoE damage, and a bit of support. So for number 3, I chose the Revenant. The Revenant is a so-called soldier profession that wears heavy armor. This profession uses a wide array of weapons and is mainly focused on dealing melee damage. Despite this, the profession can do a fair amount of AoE damage from medium range. Just to name a few examples: Unrelenting Assault, a sword skill, Temporal Rift on an offhand weapon, or Searing Fissure on a mace. The Revenant also uses legends from the original Guild Wars lore to gain access to a specific set of skills. The skills that come with these legends are managed with a unique energy mechanic that originates from the original Guild Wars. So why did the Revenant make it to this list? Well, those legends offer different playstyles, which allow you to quickly adapt to the situation. For example, the Assassin stance allows for mobility and fast attacks, while the Dwarf stance offers more control and defensive abilities, which gives you more survivability. The Path of Fire expansion allows the Revenant to unlock the Renegade elite specialization. The Renegade can wield a bow and thus deal damage from longer range. This makes the profession even more versatile than it already was. Keep in mind that this profession is only accessible if you have either the Heart of Thorns expansion or the Path of Fire expansion. Let's move on to number 2, the Necromancer. The Necromancer is a scholar profession. This means that the profession uses light armor and mainly focuses on casting spells. The reason why I prefer a Necromancer in Open World PvE is also its versatility. As the name Necromancer does suggest, this spellcaster uses curses and undead magic to deal damage and can even be used to support allies. The base Necromancer with no elite specializations already offers a lot of different playstyles. You can be a summoner with an army of minions behind you or deal damage with curses. I think my favorite thing about the Necromancer are its elite specializations. The Reaper elite specialization allows the Necromancer to wield a great sword and use shout skills. It gives you a warrior-ish vibe. The shroud abilities of the Reaper also provide great mobility and ground control. The Path of Fire elite specialization, the Scourge, replaces your shroud ability into sand shades, which can be used to remove conditions from allies and deal damage to enemies. Personally, I think the sand shades provide a fair amount of AoE damage and support for your allies. So with all of this combined, I put the Necromancer on the second spot for Open World PvE. Now before we move on, let's talk about number 1, the Elementalist. This shouldn't come to a surprise to most of you. The Elementalist is another scholar profession, meaning that it also uses light armor like the Necromancer and the Mesmer. I have been playing my Elementalist since the release of the game in 2012. But why exactly? Well, for me personally, I love dealing damage with a fire spell and then quickly swap to water to drop a healing rain. Of course, the healing I provide with damage gear on is minor, but it feels great to do. Also, the Elementalist can do massive AoE damage, and next to that, you will also have more weapon skills than other professions. 5 unique weapon skills for each attunement. The Tempest elite specialization allows the Elementalist to overload an attunement. Each attunement has a unique effect. For example, Overload Water heals you and your allies, while Overload Earth grants you protection and cripples enemies. Using these overloads also breaks your stun if you happen to be crowd controlled. I like to play my Tempest when I'm exploring the world because of its mobility and its unique overload effects. There is also the Weaver Elite specialization that comes with the Path of Fire expansion. The Weaver Elite specialization allows you to combine elements that result in new spells. For a while, this has been one of the strongest DPS specializations. However, the skill rotations can be quite challenging for newer players. Even I have trouble with the skill rotation sometimes. Alright, those were my 3 personal favorites for Open World PvE. As I've stated before, pick whatever you like, it doesn't matter too much in Open World PvE. Moving on to World vs World. Right off the bat, I'm not the biggest World vs World player. I played a fair amount of World vs World several years ago, and I recently returned with the release of the Warclaw mount. In this game mode, there have been some professions that have been popular for years. Let's have a look at the top 3. Number 3, the Revenant. I was in doubt if I should put the Necromancer or the Revenant on the number 3 spot. In the end, I chose for the Revenant. The reason being that the Revenant performs really well in a Zerg, solo, or in smaller groups of players. A popular build for the Revenant is a high sustain, high mobility build. This build uses a hammer and a staff to deal damage. This build uses the legendary Assassin stand for mobility and the legendary Dragon stance for sustain. This build excels in larger Zergs where you want to deal as much damage as possible, but survival is of utmost importance. For example, the Assassin stance allows you to quickly engage and disengage in fights, and your elite skill can turn your enemies into jade. The Dragon stance allows you to buff yourself and nearby allies, while also having an elite skill that can knock back enemies. If you happen to be alone or with a smaller group of people, you can use a double sword variant of this build instead of a hammer. This gives you more mobility and allows you to deal fast, direct damage. Moving on to number 2, the Thief. I'm sure that the Thief is one of the best professions to roam with in World vs World. Since I can recall, the dagger pistol build is very effective in solo World vs World. With high burst damage, the ability to use stealth and disable your enemies, the Thief is a tough 1 vs 1 opponent. If you happen to be overwhelmed by a group of players, your mobility skills like Infiltrator's Arrow or Shadow Step allow you to quickly disengage from a fight. Still in trouble, just use the stealth ability to become invisible to your opponents. By switching your dagger pistol for a staff, your Thief becomes an excellent profession for pressuring enemies in larger Zergs. By using the Vault ability on your staff, the Thief can deal a good amount of damage while also evading incoming damage. A Guild Wars 2 YouTuber by the name Nudie makes awesome compilations of his Thief in World vs World. Be sure to check him out if you're interested in more Thief gameplay. So let's move on to number 1 on this list, the Guardian. The Guardian made it to number 1 on this list because there is a lot of different builds for it and they're all highly effective. In bigger Zergs, the Guardian can use the Firebrand elite specialization that comes with the Path of Fire expansion. There is a specific Firebrand build that allows you to provide a large amount of stability to your allies. Stability is a boon that prevents you from being crowd controlled. There is a lot of crowd control in World vs World, so stability is something you want if you want to survive in larger battles. The Firebrand is also great at healing, cleansing and buffing your allies. Therefore, I am certain that a Firebrand is essential in every World vs World setup. The Guardian can also use the Dragon Hunter elite specialization, which comes with the Heart of Thorns expansion, to use traps in battle. These traps can quickly damage or crowd control a number of enemy players. Traps can also be highly effective if you want to roam World vs World alone or with a smaller group of people. If you don't have an expansion, don't worry. The Guardian also has some effective builds that can be used without an expansion. There are free-to-play Guardian builds available for playing in Zergs, roaming and as a support. However, they are a bit less effective than the Firebrand and the Dragon Hunter builds, but that shouldn't ruin your fun. Alright, that's World vs World. If you think I have missed something or you have a question about my list, leave it in the comments. Moving on to our last category, which which is player versus player, also referred to as PvP. In this game mode, you are in a party of 5 that fights against another party of 5. In most cases, you must claim certain capture points with your team. Holding them for a period of time gives you a fixed amount of points, and having more points than your opponent wins you the game. I really enjoy playing PvP since it's also a great way of farming achievement points. But let's have a look at the professions that are very effective in PvP. As with Open World PvE, there are a lot of different effective builds out there for PvP. So I'll try my best to make a top 3 for this game mode. Let's have a look at number 3, the Ranger. When you queue up for a solo PvP match, you should keep in mind that you don't know what your other team members are playing. And for that reason, I usually decide to play a healer when I play alone. My favorite healing build is a Druid bunker build. This healing build is similar to the PvE build that we have discussed before. However, the Druid in PvP is more focused on surviving in battle rather than increasing the damage output of nearby allies. With a decent amount of mobility and powerful healing, the Druid can stay alive in a lot of situations. This Druid healing build has experienced some nerfs over the years, but it is still pretty decent in PvP. If you are more focused on dealing DPS, I would advise you to use the Soul Beast elite specialization. The Soul Beast is more capable of doing a good amount of sustained damage to opponents in 1 versus 1 situations. But the Soul Beast is also capable of providing buffs to nearby allies. Moving on to number 2, the Mesmer. As with the PvE endgame variant of the Mesmer, the Chronomancer is a solid pick to support your team in battle. A popular build in PvP for the Mesmer is the Chrono Bunker build. This build can provide you and your allies with quickness, alacrity, protection, regeneration, and even more boons. You can then further extend the duration of these boons with the Signet of Inspiration. Once again, builds like these are focused on survival and support. This allows you to support your team while you hold a capture point against multiple enemy players. If you want to be more of a duelist, I would advise you to play the Mirage elite specialization. With the Mirage, you will have more focus on deceiving your enemies and using mobility skills to get around. Where the Bunker build usually stays at one place on the battlefield, a duelist build focuses more on moving around and participating in 1 versus 1 fights. A big advantage of the Mesmer is the portal skill. You can use this skill to create portals between capture points. This allows you and your team to act quickly when there is an enemy trying to steal your capture point. But be sure to use this skill only when necessary since its cooldown is rather long. Alright, let's move on to our number 1, the Necromancer. I found it hard to make this list, but I eventually decided to give the number 1 spot to the Necromancer. The reason being is that you can play this profession in different ways, the learning curve isn't too high, and you can be effective in most situations. Right now, I favor a condition-based build for the Necromancer. I use the Scourge elite specialization, which uses Sand Shades instead of a Death Shroud or a Reaper Shroud. These Sand Shades are really effective for supporting your allies, but it is mainly focused on stripping, converting, or transferring boons from enemy players. These Sand Shades can be used to provide your allies with a barrier, a temporary shield that mainly the Scourge can provide. I think this build or similar builds have the best of both worlds: support, survivability, and control. Therefore, I chose the Necromancer for the first place on this list. If you are less interested in dealing condition damage and supporting your allies, you can choose for a Reaper build. The Reaper elite specialization has several options to deal raw, direct damage to your opponents. And even if you don't own an expansion, you can still be rather effective in PvP. For example, there are free-to-play builds around that focus on removing boons with just the core Necromancer set of skills and traits. Even more reason for me to put the Necromancer on the number 1 spot. So, do you agree with my list? If you do or you don't, or if you feel like something is missing, please leave it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and share it with your guildies. If you want more Guild Wars 2 videos, don't forget to check out my other videos and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It helps me out a lot. And for now, I would like to thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace!